Friends, Kansas City is particularly proud of its connection with President Harry Truman. And his name is everywhere in our community, and we are proud of the Truman Library. And this humble man arose within local politics to true greatness. And on May 8th, 1953, a group of his friends and admirers celebrated his 69th birthday, and eventually this kind of private gathering became a public event a year after he's died, and with the establishment of the Harry S. Truman Good Neighbor Award Foundation. This foundation does many things, but among them is first to provide scholarships to students for our local universities, and the scholarships are given to students who are interested in public service. It recognizes foreign students that come to our country to find out about our great country. Third, it honors a distinguished member of the armed forces. And fourth, it gives a Good Neighbor Award to distinguished public figures who represent Truman's values. And over the years, the award winners have been people, I mean, the list is incredible, from Senator John McCain, Senator Claire McCaskill, Justice Sandra Day O'Connor, Walter Cronkite, President Bill Clinton, President Gerald Ford, and many, many others. And each of these distinguished Americans offer words of wisdom and inspiration. And this past week, the award given to the Good Neighbor Award was given to Bob Woodward, one of the most consequential journalists of our time, and he was given the award, and he spoke very beautifully. Now, and this is not to be nice to Bobby Epstein, because I don't like to do that, but we have a very important connection to this because of Bobby Epstein and his family, who are supporters of the foundation, and the family has created a special scholarship fund. And over the years, Bobby has been very gracious to invite me to be at one of his tables, and it's really an honor to be there, Bobby. And we should be proud of Bobby's support for this foundation in the luncheon. And I say that with great transparency and sincerity. Now, this event is filled with a lot of patriotism, a love of our country, and an affirmation of what President Truman did for our great country. And as I was taking it all in, I realized that there was a profound ethical issue that hovered over the event and that I was struggling with. And I don't know what's going on in other people's brains. I hardly know what's going on in my brain half the time, but this is what I was struggling with, and this was my observation. First, one of the underwriters of the event is Honeywell Federal Manufacturing and Technologies, FM&T, which is a management and operations contractor that works for the National Nuclear Security Administration. FM&T manages the Kansas City National Security Campus, which employs over 7,000 people and produces 80% of the non-nuclear components of the United States nuclear stockpile. Kansas City is central to creating nuclear weapons. It works this place, as there was an interesting film about it, and I think the head of the program was one of the presenters. It works around the clock to create bombs that could destroy the world. And then an incredible soldier was honored. If we want a soldier to be a soldier, this was the man, an incredible man. I won't read you his biography, it's amazing. Colonel Keith Butler was an Air Force pilot and officer. He was incredibly articulate. He spoke beautifully. Every year they honor another serviceman that's amazing, but he was particularly amazing to me because he was so incredibly articulate. He spoke beautifully about the students in public service. He gave a message about President Harry Truman. I pray all of our military is of his caliber. But what does Colonel Butler actually do? He is the commander of the 509 Bomb Wing of Whiteman Air Force Base in Sedalia. And he is responsible for the combat readiness of the B-2 Spirit stealth bomber fleet. Now, here's an interesting fact. What is that? What is one of the most important significant roles of the B-2 bomber is to deliver nuclear weapons. It's part of the triad that is the foundation of our nuclear deterrent. And Colonel Butler stated that the 509 bomb wing is directly linked to the Enola Gay that dropped the bomb on Hiroshima. And it was something that this whole bomber group took great pride in. And as you know, these B-2 bombers are the most complicated things in the whole world. And this man is an instructor of how people can fly the B-2 bomber. I mean, I'm thinking, what is going on in this man's brain? I mean, he was an incredible figure. I mean, incredibly impressive. Unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to greet him individually, but it just seemed like an incredible person. And one of the most significant decisions, as you know, of President Truman was his decision to use the atomic bomb, which led to the Japanese surrender. And I'm sitting at this incredibly wonderful luncheon honoring President Truman, honoring people of such great service like Colonel Butler, looking at Bob Woodward, who supposedly, and it was a reference made, that he was in the Navy for many years, and somehow he was connected to our nuclear weapons. I didn't quite get it, but that was the connection. And of course, I was very proud of Bobby Epstein, our member, who was supporting this event. And you know me, what the next thought was. I panicked. I'm seriously. I don't know if I'm sure no one knew it, but I was panicking. Because we have become accepting of the nuclear nightmare. That is our reality. We're just sitting here and we're accepting it. We've accepted it. Our strategic posture is based on mutually assured destruction. In other words, you won't attack me because I will attack you, and both of us would be destroyed, and of course, life would end on Earth. That's our military posture. And as a rabbi, and as a Jew, and as a citizen, as a member of the human race, I think that there is an imperative to deliberate about the nuclear assumptions under which we live. Why is it not that the first question posed to Trump and Biden at their debate will not be about this issue? I mean, it'll be about something stupid. It's almost as if they'll come up with a list of the 10 most stupid questions I can ask, and I'll ask it one after the other, like, President Trump, President Biden, we're sitting on nuclear weapons could destroy the world. Does that worry you? That'd be a question I'd ask. I mean, come on. And look, here's the deal. I started doing research. You know how many nuclear warheads there are in the world? This is after arms control. 12,512. And the Russians have 5,889. And the United States has 5,244. And China has 410. I'll give you the list since I researched it. France has 290. The United Kingdom has 225. Pakistan, has 170. India has 164. Let's make sure Pakistan, India, I don't even have to talk about that. Israel has 90, even though they don't admit to having any. And North Korea has 20. A B-2 bomber, a bomb that a B-2 bomber, one of them, would carry on a nuclear strike against Russia is 1,000 times more powerful than the Hiroshima bomb. We are involved as a nation in a $300 billion upgrade of our nuclear forces. $300 billion. Putin has threatened to use nuclear weapons. Iran is close to a nuclear weapon. I have no idea why President Trump got out of the nuclear deal. I don't get it. I don't get the Israelis. It was better than no deal. North Korea has them. And to keep their poor country from collapsing, it's quite plausible that Kim Jong-un would sell a weapon for hard cash. There's a right-wing lunatics in Israel that were even too crazy for Netanyahu, who said, let's nuke Gaza. This is insanity. Now, we all revere President Truman, but in all due respect to President Truman, his use of nuclear weapons is certainly not without moral implications. And I'm not saying he did the wrong thing. I'm not at all. But let me tell you, it's a quite personal issue for me My father was a World War II veteran. He was in the European theater. He was a first lieutenant in the Army Air Corps. And he said to me once, because I was a smart aleck kid, and so I could say anything, usually without any forethought. And so we were talking about nuclear weapons, whatever. He said, look, if the bomb, my father was the most gentle soul in the whole world. If the bomb had not been dropped, he would have been shipped to the Pacific, and he most probably would have been one of the million American soldiers who would have died invading Japan. But we read about Truman, and it distresses me that he didn't distress him so much. Hiroshima and Nagasaki did have military significance, but the atomic bomb killed 90,000 to 146,000 people in Hiroshima and 60 to 80,000 people in Nagasaki. And Truman said he did not have any doubt about the wisdom of the decision, unlike those he pictured as eggheads or Monday morning quarterbacks. We know how he spoke, so he knew how to speak. He called it the most terrible decision that any man in the history of the world had to make, but I'd do it again, and I would not hesitate. And on one occasion, asked how long it took him to decide to use the new device, he simply snapped his fingers. And when the scientific director of the bomb project in Los Alamos, Robert Oppenheimer, and it's depicted in the movie, but it's a true event, he revealed during a private meeting with the president shortly after the war that he feared he had blood on my hands, referring to Oppenheimer. Truman, by varying accounts, either offered to pass him a handkerchief or simply told him to quit worrying, the decision was his. And after he left, Truman complained to a top advisor that the father of the atomic bomb was a crybaby scientist. Truman had no qualms. He wasn't tormented by it. That's not sitting well with me. And that doesn't take away anything from the greatness of President Truman. But somehow, when I read that, that doesn't sit well with me. So let me wear my rabbi's hat for a moment. Are nuclear weapons morally acceptable in Jewish tradition? A great argument. There's a wonderful book I have called Omnicide, what a terrible name, which talks about all the Jewish, a very extensive discussion of all the ethical issues in terms of Judaism in nuclear weapons. And Rabbi Emanuel Jakubowicz, who later became the chief rabbi of the British Empire, of the British Commonwealth, stated, Jewish military ethics is built on the notion of self-defense. However, he argued that one cannot invoke such a claim if such a defensive war would annihilate both sides, if not the entire human race. How can nuclear weapons be ethical if it would destroy the world? So where does this leave us? So here are the questions that I'm having. And again, these are questions, and it's because I'm in a panic. And I hope other people would be in a panic too. Thank goodness I can never run for public office. What's your great quality, Alan? I'm always panicked. That'd be a good campaign slogan. Thank goodness as a rabbi, not running for anything. Okay, so where does this leave us? Should a Jew take a job at Honeywell plant? That's a good question. Should a Jew fly a B-2 bomber? Israel has nuclear weapons, thanks to Shimon Peres for this. Would it ever be moral to use them? And then you start doing research. At the beginning of the 1973 Yom Kippur War, Moshe Dayan broached the possibility of employing of nuclear response because Israel was going to lose the war until Golda Meir said no. And how come this is not a central discussion among Jews? So I started doing research. I don't like national Jewish organizations. I know some of you have heard this. I think it's a lot about posturing, raising money, and having lunch. Okay, so here's the deal. Okay, it is. I don't want to get started on that. But okay, so I said, okay, I'm going to go to the Conference of Presidents of major American Jewish organizations. That's where all the people who like to have lunch are having lunch together. Okay, so here's the question. What are their agenda items? I went through every one of them, and it's a very interesting organization. Not one discussion about nuclear proliferation. Then I said, okay, I went to the Religious Action Center of the Reform movement, something we as Reformed Jews should be very proud of. I said, okay, what are the topics that they're concerned about? And some of them, I don't have the same concern as they do, but that's another issue. Not one discussion of nuclear proliferation. This is not an issue on their agenda. The use of nuclear weapons would most probably lead to the destruction of all life on Earth, which is called omnicide. The Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons opened for signature at the United Nations on New York on the 20th of September 2017 and entered into force on the 22nd of January 2021. There are 93 signatories, and of course, the US, China, and Russia never signed it. Oseh shalom bimromav, he who makes peace in his heights. Hu ya'aseh shalom, may he make peace. Aleinu v'al Yisrael, upon us and upon all Israel. V'yamru amen, let it be so. Is it an empty platitude that we should stop chanting, or should we take it seriously? You tell me. Shabbat shalom.